Hello everyone. It's your boy here. Really quickly, I would like to talk about the new Jurassic World Live update. This is a little new to my channel, but I've been playing Jurassic World Live a year after it came out, like after it released. So I've been really invested in this game for a very long time. And I would like to just go over this newest update and kind of rant a little bit. So let's get right into it. How I do these is I usually just go over the updates. I do a rant and then I do an overall summary on my thoughts on this kind of stuff. So, really quickly, let's go over this very surprisingly small update. I don't know why they thought of releasing this update like it is. I think it took them around 2 months to do it too, which is a little odd because the most recent updates, it's been taking them about a month intervals, if I'm not mistaken. So I'm a little confused, but anyways, what's new? We have the new Isla event, which includes boss battles, which we'll dig right into in a second. New abilities, which is always great. I'm excited for abilities. Um, Creature updates and ability updates, which is great, and bugs and known issues. So, really quickly, I want to go on a side note. From what I have observed, the Spinoceratops move, Brace, it heals you for strike damage, and it's supposed to give you about 50% armor, if I'm not mistaken. The thing about that, though, from what I have observed, is it would say on the status that you gain the 50% armor, but it doesn't feel like you get the 50% armor. And I don't know if that's a known issue or not. I haven't really gone on the Discord, like the official Discord, to ask a talk about that. But it's just something that I've noticed, and I really hope that's one of the fixes. Excuse me, one of the bug fixes or known issues that they're working on. So boss battles. Technically, what they're going to be doing is they're going to be taking the Isla events, like how you've normally been doing them, but they're going to make them into a raid format. So you're going to take four of your creatures, you're going to set them all up, and like you would do a raid. So it's like a solo raid battle. So think of it like, for example, the epic T-Rex raid. Imagine that, but in the Isla Nicta or the Isla event. So you're going to be fighting that T-Rex on your own with all of the eligible creatures that you are able to use. So definitely want to keep in mind some raid creatures to use in the Isla event when you're coming up against these bosses, because I'm assuming they're going to be really difficult to fight against, but I mean, we'll see. Most of this stuff is kind of easy, unfortunately. And the harder stuff can be unbelievably hard, and it doesn't feel like there's a middle ground, personally, but that's another discussion for another time. So, new abilities. We got Group Persistent Strike, which is great. Group Fortifying Impact. I am actually really interested to see who gets that. Healing Bellow, which I could have sworn Notapad Titan had, but I guess the difference between what Notapad Titan has and this one is that this one affects the team, and maybe Notapad Titans only affects itself. I'll have to check up on that. I'm not entirely sure. The Instant Charging Impact, which is interesting as well. The Imminent Stampede. I am a little skeptical on it, only because it only cleanses speed decrease. So like it increases your speed, like increases your group's speed, and then increases your attack only. So when you use it, it's a priority move, and it hits everyone, like all of your allies, but then it only increases your damage, which is, I don't know how I feel about that. I don't know if that's really going to be extremely useful in raids. I mean, I can kind of see it maybe replacing Tor's priority, like acceleration or whatever that move was. It's priority move. It does strike damage and increases everyone's speed by 50%. So like pretty much with this one, it's taking away the damage that the user deals, and it instead increases their own attack. Which I mean, it's okay. It's again, depending on what uses it, I don't think it'll be very helpful for raids. But this is what I'm really excited for. Only because I know exactly what is getting it, but I'm not going to spoil it just yet because we're going to find out who gets this soon. And let me tell you, they really, really needed it. But yes, deaccelerating strike, you swap in, you deal strike damage, and you reduce the opponent's speed by 50% for 2 turns. Personally, seeing how I know what's using it, I feel like it could be, if the status was kind of different, like maybe a resilient swap in instead, or I don't know, just something different. Maybe a defense like an armor piercing where it only goes through armor. That would be interesting. But hey, I'll take the deaccelerating strike. It's better than nothing. I'll 100% take that. And securing taunt. Now, this is pretty interesting. I do kind of like this because it gives you and your team 50% shields, but it only gives the user 20% armor. Now that's all well and good, but it's not priority and it also doesn't deal damage. So I'm not entirely sure how this is going to be optimally used, but I'm sure some people can definitely think of a way to use it in raids or hell, it maybe in PvP. I'm really excited to see how people use it. Let's see here. Scorpions got nerfed, which they didn't get that big of a nerf. It's more of like a slap on the wrist. They got 5% of their armor shaved off and 50 damage shaved off, which isn't that big of a deal, especially since you're mainly going to be using them in epic tournaments, and that's if there's no hybrids, or maybe people do use these even if there are hybrids in the tournament. Either way, I don't really see this impacting how often they're used at all, because again, it's a slap on the wrist. It's really not that big of a deal. Again, 5% armor and 50 damage taken off, like overall, that's not really anything, especially since it's not even a hybrid. It's literally just a pure epic. So again, oh well, kind of sucks for people that really like it, but I never really see it being used past what, Arena Silver 3-star? I don't know the arena names, but I know them by stars. Monolophosaurus. I am surprised they decided to even do anything with Monolophosaurus, but that does not mean I am not happy about this, because I am. Tough Group Cunning Strike. That alone is freaking awesome. Already giving Monolophosaurus a way to combat those lower tier flocks, and they buffed its health for some reason. I'm not entirely sure why. And it's not even that big of a buff. It's like not significant at all. It's kind of just there. I don't entirely know why, but hey, we'll take what we can get, I guess. And then we got a lot of 25% resistance buffs. Literally from 0 to 25, which seems a little goofy, but we'll take it, I guess. We got 25% resistant to vulnerability, which I don't get why. She doesn't need that. She just doesn't. Reduce damage, resistant by 25%. Make that bigger. I'm sorry, I'm starting to already critique it. But yeah, so vulnerability by 25%, reduce damage by 25%, or distraction, depending on how old you are. you'll probably refer to it either as reduced damage or distraction. 25% resistance to DOT, and 25% resistance to speed decrease, which is pretty good for a cunning. I mean, I think it's a little too low, but hey, any resistance to speed decrease is good for a cunning. This Hydrosaur, Ornosaurus, got minor deaccelerating counter, which is fairly interesting. I am not too familiar with that counter, so I'm interested to see how that's going to go. Attributes got 10% armor, which is alright, 50% stun, and 50% damage over time, both resistances, which is pretty good. Definitely feel like this guy is going to be climbing up the tier list by maybe 1 tier, maybe 2, depending on where it was located. Don't entirely remember where it was, but hey. This got me off guard. I'm not even gonna lie. I thought they were gonna nerf Oviraptor Gen 2, because I did not think he was as good or good enough to even get a buff. I thought he was too good to where they're gonna nerf him. But no, they buffed his health by 200 and they buffed his attack by 50, and they gave him a speed decrease resistance by 75, which is really good, especially since he has a darting counter already, which, if most of you aren't entirely sure, was Dilakyrus's signature counter. It did strike damage, and it increases your speed by 30% for 2 turns? I think. Maybe it was only 1 turn. Not entirely sure, now that I think about it. I'll have to double check. So, Bumpy has gotten buffs, which is awesome. Group Taunting Shield Impact becomes Taunt Resilient Group Impact, which is fantastic. He's also got a 200 health buff and a 50 damage buff, which, again, 50 usually isn't that big of a deal in the grand scheme of things, but the fact that he has Resilient Group Impact now, and it does more damage too. So it's resilient, so he cleanses himself of distraction. Then he deals group damage of the resilient variety, and it deals more damage than it normally would have because of the 50 damage buff, which is phenomenal. So that is great. I am excited to see that. I'm not sure how his viability is going to be for raids, because every time I see a group move, I immediately think of, well, maybe they could possibly be useful for raids. If so, how would they do that? Or maybe he's going to be strictly used for PvP. I'm not entirely sure. I don't use Bumpy too much, but hey, good for Bumpy. Let's go. Good stuff. And now, Agricanthosaurus. He got a very small buff, but a buff nonetheless. He got his Fierce Impact became Group Defense Shattering Impact. I don't know why he just doesn't have Group Fierce Impact. I mean, it would be less wordy and it would cleanse him of vulnerability, but hey, whatever. It's still a group attack. Good stuff. And his speed goes from 103 to 110. That is very fast for a theropod. 110 speed. Hi. So whoever has this early on in the arenas, hey, more power to you. Now we got Sintamoth, which is a very weird name. I still can't get over how weird that name is. Which had ability changes and a resistance, which is cool. He's got Ferocious Persistent Strike, which becomes Group Persistent Strike, which is great. He does right now have Group Cleansing Impact, but it's changing to Group Fortifying Impact. And then his Group Deaccelerating Impact becomes Healing Bellow, which, I mean, hey, it's Healing Bellow. Personally, I would prefer him to keep Group Deaccelerating Impact, but that's just me. And then he got a new resistance, which is Distraction, which is great because I don't think he had any resistances at all. So that's cool. I don't know. I feel like Cinemoth's um, changes were a little underwhelming to me personally because I do. Well, yeah, I still do have high hopes for this guy. I feel like he'd be really good for facing not only flocks but being really good for raids. But I don't know. I'll have to really see what the changes look like in the game because I mean, it obviously looks different from this screen to the game screen, so we'll see. And then Dio Rajasaur, which is great. He has the swap and deaccelerating strike. His group shielding goes to secure taunt. He gains more HP. He gains a great amount of resistances, which is what I said. That's all they really need to do to make him really good is resistances. Because for those of you who aren't aware, he has no resistances right now. Literally none. Zip, zero. He has no resistances, and it sucks. So the fact that they're giving him any kind of resistances at all is freaking great. He gets distraction resistance, which, I mean, it doesn't sound like a very good thing for a resilient type that has nothing but resilient moves, but then again, you also have to remember that he has that raking counter, so he can really benefit from that distraction resistance. He gains a critical chance reduction immunity, which means if you land, or if that 5%, I think it was 5% crit chance, I think. Anyways, that 5% crit chance, it ain't going away. You still get that 5% chance of getting a crit on that counter. Whatever 5% means to you. He has vulnerability resistances, which is great. 50% resistant to vulnerability. He has an immunity to speed decrease, which is phenomenal. And then he also has a resistance to stun by 50%. And to my experience, 50% resistant to stun isn't that huge. It's not that big of a game changer, but hey, in that off chance that it does save you from a stun, that is fantastic. And then we got, finally, Sarah Magnus with a buff. Finally, he needed one. His acute stun becomes instant charging impact, which is going to be pretty interesting. He gets group acceleration. Well, excuse me, he has group acceleration, which is becoming imminent stampede. And they are adding stunning obstruction, which those of you who are not aware, that is Sinoceratops's and Phororex's unescapee move, where if they try to escape, they will be locked down, hit with strike damage, and they will be, I think it's a 100% chance to stun. So if they're not immune at all to, or resistant at all to stun, they're locked in, they're stunned, and I think the next turn they're stunned too. I could be wrong on that. That sounds a little overpowered now that I say that out loud. I think it's just for that one move, that one turn. And I think the stunning part is just to prevent people from getting their counters down. Anyways, whatever. He gets a health buff, which is great. Same treatment as Dio got with the 300 health increase. And then he has swap prevention resistance by 50%, which is, I mean, kind of interesting. We'll see how that goes. And now the bug fixes and issues for anyone who is interested. Various fixes for stats and skills. Fixed some specific device issues. Fixed an issue during the Isla event where the health bar of a player's dino was off screen. Creatures shouldn't appear white anymore, which is cool for those of you who haven't encountered it yet, which I'd be surprised if you didn't. If they're inflicted with any kind of armor increase or armor effect, from what I'm aware of, they turn white. Like, literally, it looks like they just shedded their texture, so they just become the all-white model, which is a little goofy, not gonna lie. And then the following issues they have is bug preventing the cards from loading properly in the collection screen, and scrolling all the way down to the bottom of the collection is a workaround to the issue, which I'm not entirely sure what they meant on about that with the same bullet point, but if they're implying that they're adding something to scroll all the way at the bottom without you flicking your finger until you finally get there, hey, I'm all for that. And trying to buy an instant unlock step of a welcome battle pass might freeze the game and block the players. This is being looked at with priority. Of course. The welcome back pass. Or the welcome battle pass, excuse me. Anyways, now that we looked at all the fun things that this very small patch or update, whatever you want to call it, is adding, let's go into, not the abilities, the creature updates. I already shared my thoughts during the review. I gotta fix that. I gotta work on that. But yeah, the scorpions, I don't think they're really gonna be affected too much by this nerf. Again, it's a slap on the wrist. Monolithosaurus, the ability change is highly welcomed. The added HP doesn't entirely make sense, but we'll take it. I mean, if it was like 200, I would say okay, that's okay, but it's literally just 100 HP. So I mean, I don't know. I don't really find it to be that like groundbreaking for Monolithosaurus users. I don't see them going like, oh my gosh, that's exactly what I needed. But no, the resistances are what I'm really confused at. The speed decrease resistance, like why? What's 25%? I would say just make it 50. Reduce damage, make it 50. Damage over time. I don't really think he even needs it, personally, because I mean he has all cunning moves, and cunning cleanses bleed, excuse me. So like, I don't know. I don't. Whatever, man. The vulnerability is what doesn't make any kind of sense to me. Like who? He's a raptor. Like he's a cunning. Cunning is supposed to be scared of vulnerability because that's what resilients do now. They make people vulnerable. This guy, honestly, I don't really have much to comment on him. About him, her. I think they're all girls. I think that's what they alluded to, or at least said in Jurassic Park. I'm not sure. Either way, I don't really see this being groundbreaking for this creature either, really. Maybe it's just for people to use them when they find them and they don't know what to do with them. It's like, hey, he's better now. Use him now. And they're like, okay, sure, we'll use him. Oviraptor Gen 2, that is actually kind of hype. I don't really think he has any other resistances. I don't think. Hold on, let me check real quick. Oviraptor Gen 2, he has... Oh. He has crit reduction immunity and a resistance to distraction by 50%, which is not fantastic. But yeah, this raptor, I had high hopes for it, but now I have even higher hopes for it because they buffed it instead, which is kind of crazy. What I don't entirely get is why they didn't just make him immune to distraction. That I'm a little confused on, but I mean, he's all crit based, so I don't know. Either way, still really good. Oh, dart encounter is 25% speed increase, not 30. Excuse me, I was wrong there. And it's for one turn, not two. But yeah, and then he's got the swap and dodge. Yeah, Oviraptor Gen 2 was just really good. I'm surprised they decided to buff him instead of nerf him, personally. Maybe somebody in the comments would be like, oh, well, he just needed to be nerfed. You don't know how good he was. Or, sorry, excuse me, wrong argument. He just needed to be buffed. You don't know how bad he was. Either way, yeah, I'm glad he's getting a buff. Good stuff, personally. Bumpy, I already touched on how I felt. I think the buffs are well deserved. Definitely needed them. The resilient group impact instead of just a normal group impact is phenomenal. The health increase, always needed for a resilient type, and the damage increase is just going to make the impact do more damage. So, hey, all around welcome. Acrocanthosaurus, not a huge buff, but not an unwelcomed buff. Because again, group defense shattering impact, and his speed goes from 103 to 110. I mean, if you have a problem with a speedier theropod, then I think you got problems with the game. Because Mortem's got 110 speed. No, all jokes aside, though, I am actually really excited to see how this Acrocanthosaurus, this new one, works. Let's see if maybe he can be used in some legendary raids, like some legendary carry raids now. So we'll have to see. Centimoth, he, again, I already kind of touched up on that too. I'm just not too. I'm not too interested in the changes. Like, I like the group persistent strike. I think that's pretty cool. But the group fortifying impact and the healing bellow, group fortifying impact I'm okay on. I don't find that bad at all. But the healing bellow I'm really skeptical personally. And then the distraction to, or the resistance to distraction by 50%. I mean, well, let's. Oh, I don't even remember. There you go. Okay, so so he did have resistances. He had immunity to vulnerability, 50 or 75% resistance to stun, and swap prevention. And now on top of all that, he's going to be getting a 50% resistance to distraction, which is good. I do like that, but I was worried personally that that was the only one that he had, and that really wouldn't help him too much in any case scenario. So, resistance buff welcomed, the strike change welcomed, the group fortifying impact. Is that a new skill? We probably already went over it, but okay, it is. Oh, but it only cleanses and heals itself in the team, and then it only attacks the highest HP. That's why I was skeptical. I was kind of hoping that it would hit the group, so it would heal and cleanse the group, and then it would deal damage to all of the enemies. Like, it'd be an actual group attack and not just group healing impact. Like, I don't know. And then healing bellow, it's not bad. Like, that's all I really have to say about it. It's not horrible. It's a priority. It cleanses speed decrease, heals, gives shield, and then decreases the speed of the opponent, which is great. But originally, I just didn't understand why it didn't cleanse. And personally, I still don't understand why it just doesn't cleanse everything. I feel like that would be way more beneficial and would really help out with the heal. But I don't know. But yeah, he's underwhelming change to me personally. Like, good, it's still good, but it's underwhelming to me. And then Dio. I feel like Dio, he was the one that was getting buffed, if that makes sense. Like, he was the focus. And I am so happy he was. Yeah, forget about how he got a freaking Apex hybrid. I don't care about that. Freaking Ankylos Lux can get out of here. He's annoying. I don't care about him. Geminitis is better. Geminitis gang. But yeah, so Dio Rajasaur, the swap and deaccelerating strike, phenomenal, especially since he doesn't have an escapee move. So the fact that he has a swap in instead, hey, we'll take it. And then the taunt and group shield becoming secure taunt. Again, I said before, it seems like an interesting concept. I can't wait to see how people utilize it. The reason why I have more hopes for this than maybe a couple of the other quote-unquote beneficial buffs or team buffs, whatever, is because he gives shield and then to himself and everyone else, and then armor, which is increasing not viability. What is the word? Sustainability? Maybe? I don't know. He's making people last longer. he's making people not die more. Or he's making people die less. However you want to take it. Either way, he's tanky, and he's making everyone else tank too, which is great. And then the HP buff, always welcome for a resilient type, especially for one of Dio stature. And then the distraction resistance, critical reduction resistance, vulnerability, deacceleration, and stun, all of those combined into something that didn't have any resistances at all. Freaking phenomenal. You'll love to see it. Dio honestly deserved this kind of buff, and I might have to use him. Because originally, I finally got him. I was all like set up for starting to use him and whatnot, and then Better Creatures came out, and then Inkleos Lux came out, and then I was like, so I'm just not going to use Dio then. But now this buff is honestly screaming like, hey, Dio is also viable. Don't drop him just because you either want the Apex or, there are better things out there. Because he's just as viable now, from what it looks like. I'll solidify that right now. From what it looks like, he's more viable, and you might see a lot more Dios being used in the arena, which is again really great. I'm tired of seeing the same godforsaken creatures over and over again in the arena. It's like I'm fighting the same team but with a different hand every battle. It sucks. So hopefully this buff will bring Dio back into the higher arenas, and maybe we'll see a better mix-up of teams. Hell, same with the Sarah Magnus. I mean, personally, I don't think the buff is as good as it should be. I mean, if they maybe changed his normal rampage into a resilient rampage, that alone would probably get me more hype. But, I mean, the other changes they have for him, not bad. Swap prevention, resistance, health increase, adding stunning obstruction, changing acute stun to instant charging impact, and then the group acceleration to imminent stampede. I mean, I'm still on the fence. Like all of these group moves, I'm on the fence about, except for the secure taunt. The secure taunt I'm all for, but the rest of them I'm kind of like on the fence about, because imminent stampede here, let me just so that I'm not getting this wrong, I'm gonna bring it back up. So imminent stampede, you increase yours and and everyone else's speed while only cleansing speed decrease and only increasing your attack. So you're increasing everyone's and your speed for 2 turns. You're only cleansing speed decrease, and you're only increasing your damage for 50% for 1 turn. Now, that might not sound horrible for PvP. You're probably going to be like, hey, I'm doing Imminent Stampede, I'm hitting you with a Rampage next turn. You're either screwed or you're screwed because I have Secure Obstruction 2 or whatever it's called. Which is great, but then again, for the argument of PvP, if they have a Cunning, they're just going to use a Cunning move that would probably completely negate your damage increase, and it'll decrease your damage, and because you don't have any distraction resistance, it's going to go down even more, and people are going to be like, oh, well, what if I'm faster than them anyways? They can't hit me with a Cunning move. You're right, but they can still, think of Ref. He can still do the nullifying distraction, and it won't just nullify your attack boost, it'll nullify your freaking speed increase too. So you're getting nullified on your attack, you're getting nullified on your speed, and you're getting your attack decreased. Just for you to hit him with pretty much strike damage if you use your Rampage, and then he's just going to hit you with his distracting counter, and he's going to hit you with more Cunning moves. You see what I'm trying to say? Yeah, it's great, but in PvP, there are so many counters to that kind of crap, it's ridiculous. And then don't get me started on Dialachyrus. Dialachyrus would mess this thing up. Imminent Stampede or not, doesn't matter. He'd be like, oh, you increased your speed too? And your damage? Well, I increased my speed, I heal, I hit you and increase my speed, and I just took away all of your attack. It's just I don't feel like this would be as bad for PvP if he had some kind of distraction resistance. And now that wouldn't help him with keeping Imminent Stampede's attack increase. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that he would be more viable if he had some kind of resistance to cunning moves. Because to those of you who aren't entirely sure, cunning moves heal the user, or not heal, excuse me, they cleanse the user of DOT, and they get rid of all damage and crit boosts of the opponent, and they completely get rid of crit chance and reduce the opponent's speed by 50, or not speed, opponent's attack by 50%. So literally, you're getting all of your offensive stat buffs gone, and all of your offensive stats in general are getting debuffed for that one turn. And because Sarah Magnus has no resistance to any of these, he's still getting screwed over. Like, it's actually ridiculous. Like, yeah, cool, he still has the speed decrease, but now he doesn't have the attack decrease, or increase, excuse me. He doesn't have the attack increase, and his attack is actually decreased as well. And it's not like, oh, well, he has Resilient Rampage so he can cleanse the distraction. He can't. He has a normal Rampage. I don't even think it's precise, to be honest. Let me check real quick. What Sarah Magnus's Rampage is. It is a precise Rampage, so I was wrong. I thought it was just a normal Rampage. So, hey, precise Rampage is okay, but he would much benefit. It would be more beneficial to have a resilient Rampage than a precise Rampage, especially since he has no resistance to offensive debuffs as he should have. So that is the main point I'm trying to get across here, is that Sarah Magnus, yeah, Imminent Stampede is an interesting move, but I don't really see Sarah Magnus having a really good time using it. Now, if it was given to somebody else, I feel it would be more useful. Don't ask me what dino would benefit more from it, because I'm not entirely sure without, making said dino overpowered, like Mortem. But yeah, so either way, interesting. The move itself is interesting, but the creature that has it, I feel like it would either be a better choice to use it on a different creature or buff Sarah Magnus more than just swap prevention, resistance, and HP. Again, HP is always useful because he's a resilient type, but he feels more like an outdated resilient type than a modern resilient type, if that makes sense. So, anyways, that's my little rant for all the creatures that were buffed and whatnot. The abilities I'm not too worried about. Again, I mean, you've kind of heard snippets of how I feel. I don't know. Interesting overall. Not too exciting for the people of the higher arenas, but us little guys, we are interested and excited for some of these. I am actually excited for a lot of these. Only because even though most of these don't really affect the higher arenas at all, it will affect tournaments and how they can play out. So that in of itself is going to be really, really interesting to see. So, yeah. I don't know. I think that's about it. Because, again, new abilities, they look fine. Some of them are sketchy to me personally, but overall good. Overall, all character buffs, or creature buffs, whatever you want to call them. No nerfs, which I love to see. I don't think anything really needs a nerf personally, except for maybe Dialakyrus. The only reason why I say that is because I feel like his darting counter does too much damage. I feel like if they cut the damage in half, he would be fine. Honestly, that's just how I see it. Yeah, you could probably argue, oh, well, he doesn't need the counter to be nerfed because of ref's priority damage decrease, or I don't even know what you could argue to say that he's not as good. Maybe Inkleos Lux. Oh, just use Inkleos Lux. I hate it when people argue like that. Just use one specific creature you either don't have or have at very low level. Just use him and you're fine. Like, no, it shouldn't be that way. I should be able to use any kind of resilient and not feel like I'm at a disadvantage against a cunning type. Like, I don't feel like that should be the norm. No, that just doesn't sound right. Oh yeah, I'm a resilient type that's at a disadvantage of this cunning type because he can decrease my attack, or maybe he can't, depending on the resilient type. He can hit me once and then twice as a counter for full strike damage on the healing cunning type. And it increases his speed, and then he can heal next turn while dealing full strike damage to me again. And then hit me with a rampage, and then if I still barely survive, I can hit him with the biggest move. But if somebody boosts his HP just ever so slightly, he will outlive that, and he'll hit me with a counter and then heal. Like, that just doesn't... No, that doesn't make sense to me. There should be no explanation why a good resilient type should feel disadvantage against a good cunning type. It just doesn't make sense to me. But again, nerfing and buffs and all that, all balancing stuff, I really feel like I could just make a whole rant video on that alone, and I don't want to make this video any longer than it is, so I'm just going to end it here. Let me know what you guys think about the new buffs and changes and all this other stuff that's happening in this newest update. Oh, really quickly, this update is being released this coming Tuesday. They usually bring out patch notes of a release or of an update, and then the following Tuesday is when they usually drop it. I had no idea until just a couple days ago. I figured it was just random, whenever they felt like it. But yeah, it's usually the following Tuesday after they set the patch notes out. In case somebody didn't know in the comments or is currently watching, hey, I was in your boat, but now you know. Every Tuesday. Good stuff. But yeah, let me know what you guys think about this new update. Let me know how you feel about the creature changes. If you think you're going to be using any of these creatures at all, whether it be in tournaments, arenas, whatever, just let me know. I'm interested to see what you guys say. And I would love feedback on some of these new abilities, like the ones I'm skeptical about. I would love to hear some counter arguments. Because, hey, maybe I'm just a little delusional. Either way, thank you very much for watching, and I hope you all have a great day.